This is Research Like a Pro, episode 275, Research in Courthouses, interview with Lillian Wingate of Bulloch County, Georgia. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogist professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the authors of Research Like a Pro, a genealogist guide. With Robin Worthland, they also co-authored the companion volume, Research Like a Pro with DNA. Join Diana and Nicole as they discuss how to stay organized, make progress in their research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go! Today's episode is brought to you by findagrave.com, the best place to search online for burial information for your family, friends, and famous people. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Research Like a Pro.
Hi, Nicole. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you? What have you been working on?
Well, I've been working on my locality guide assignment for the study group project I'm doing on Clumsy Klein, and I'm working on her fan club. So the people that I found who were also patenting land around where she and her husband were living in Arkansas. And I found a new county, Fulton County, which became a county. It was split off from its parent of Izard, which is where Clumsy was living. But it's really tricky because both Izard and Fulton were severely burned counties. So for the time frame that I am researching, about 1840 to 1870, there is hardly anything. There's no probate, there's no land, there are no marriage records, all the things we typically use. No court records. They just had a courthouse fire in 1870. So I've been just really scrambling, trying to get together some locality items that will help. And luckily, there are tax records and there are county histories. And of course, I have the land patents already, tract books. So, anyway, that's been kind of my challenge trying to figure out what else I can add to this guide when there's not much left for my specific time frame.
Yeah, that is a challenge and also a good learning opportunity to try to work through those challenges of a burned county.
Absolutely. So, we look at other jurisdictions and I might look at other counties around it. The problem is this whole area had a lot of record loss. So, all of this northern Arkansas area was pretty badly burned, mostly because of Civil War and post-Civil War contention.
All right. Well, if you haven't tried out our quick reference guide for Airtable research logs, go to our website. You can purchase that there for a PDF download. Also, our next Research Like a Pro webinar is on November 18th, and it's about the origins of Isabella McFall, an early 19th century British immigrant. And this is a DNA case study by Melanie Witt, who is a researcher on our team here at Family Locket Genealogist. She's a qualified genealogist, and that is the initials QG. And she earned that for researching in England and the UK. She also received her master's degree from Strathclyde, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah, so she is a wonderful researcher, and she's going to be sharing her DNA case study about Isabella McFall. So we hope you'll join us. And then if you're looking forward on your calendar, in February of 2024, we'll have our next Research Like a Pro with DNA study group. And if you'd like to join us without having to pay the registration costs, we are looking for peer group leaders who have experience with the Research Like a Pro process, and you can apply on our website. And if you join our newsletter, you'll receive a weekly email from us with information about our new blog posts and podcast episodes and any coupons and sales.
Well, we are really thrilled today to have a guest, and we have Lillian Wingate here with us, who is going to tell us all about the work that she does in genealogy. So, Lillian, tell us a little bit about what you do in Bulloch County, Georgia.
Hi, Diana. So I have worked at the Statesboro Bulloch County Library for nearly 8 years now. I'm the genealogy and local history coordinator, and 4 years ago I became a regional employee. So I now work at all 6 libraries in our region. I teach genealogy classes, assist patients all across the U.S., I work with the local university, Georgia Southern, also with the probate courts and several outreach organizations. I've also started the Bulloch County Genealogical Society back in 2017, and we formed and elected officers in 2018. So, most genealogy that happens in Bulloch County and the surrounding counties, I'm kind of the center of it.
That is so awesome. Well, and I met you at NGS, the National Genealogical Society conference this spring in Richmond, and I was so glad you introduced yourself to me because, as you know from listening to the podcast, you know that I have some Bulloch County ancestors, particularly my John Royson, who disappears there. And so I am excited to learn more about Bulloch County records from you and just whatever you can tell us more about Bulloch County.
I love that you have started the Genealogical Society there in your county too. That's neat. I worked with our society here for a few years and it was really neat. And also, we're always so thankful for everyone who volunteers too.
Yes, I love volunteers. We were just starting to get off the ground in March of 2020. We hosted the Georgia Genealogical Society, and everything shut down the next week due to COVID. So we're still trying to get back on our feet with that, but we have several members in other states who are helping us with digitization projects, which is wonderful.
So great. Well, tell us more about what kind of projects you have worked on. Have you done some things with like probate courts?
Yes, several of the projects that I have had interns with have helped with that. One of my first interns to help with this was actually during COVID. So, Savannah Savage Johnson began abstracting a book of last will and testaments that a previous researcher had begun. Both of us had to become very familiar with the clerk's handwriting for that time period, which was quite messy, to be honest, which all of us have seen. And this is still an ongoing project to abstract these particular book of last will and testaments. I have another intern this past summer who helped me digitize some books that were microfilmed, but they were very poor copies and you could not read everything clearly. So she was able to rescan the books. And another intern has helped in a bordering county in Candler County. We retrieved, I can't say the number because I'm not quite sure, but over 250 pounds worth of books from the attic of the courthouse. Candler County was completely skipped when microfilming was being done, and there is no index of the records that are available there. So, my intern Cameron Wilson helped retrieve these books and begin an index, and we're hoping that Family Search can come help us digitize these records once they are gathered all together.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe that Candler County was skipped when everything was microfilmed. I'm surprised. And the attic does not seem like a very good place to store those.
No. I had talked to the probate judge several years ago, and he had mentioned they were up there. And it took me years of kind of trying to find the right intern and someone to help. And I actually did a lot of the retrieval myself. So we had to climb up about a 16-foot ladder that was straight, and they had put a new HVAC system, and we had to climb around all of that. And it's been a I went to school for anthropology and archaeology as well. So this is one of my things that I love to do where I get my hands dirty a little bit.
Oh my word, that cracks me up. I can just picture you guys on that ladder, and then you'd have these big, heavy books. That seems so dangerous to have to climb back down with the books.
The first time we went up, we were kind of MacGyvering things. We had a sheet and ropes, and I was the only one who could tie knots. So I wrapped up the books in the sheet. I did knots around them to hold them, and we did a pulley system lowering them down.
Well, that's brilliant. That is so smart. And no lives were lost in this effort, right?
No, and no books dropped either.
Oh my
Phew.
goodness, that's awesome. That is so interesting that you mentioned that they completely were missed when Family Search was out doing the original digitizing.
I've noticed that all of the Georgia counties created after 1900, none of those are on Family Search. Many of them were microfilmed by the Georgia Archives, and they're only available at the Georgia Archives, but not on Family Search. But in this
Oh,
case, Candler County was never microfilmed at all.
Well, I'm sure Family Search will be thrilled to come out and get that microfilming done once you're ready for them.
I'm counting down the days.
So, you have been there working at the Bulloch Library for 8 years. Was there someone before you who had started this work, or what was going on before you took over?
There were three past genealogists in this position, but they were reference librarians and did the work kind of part time. But Alvaretta Keenan Register was the local genealogist for decades here, and many researchers probably recognize her name. She did the early North Carolina census records, and she was the DAR registrar in Washington, D.C. She published a book that was an abstract of early deed records, last will and testaments, marriages. She has over 40 publications for Bulloch County. But her book, which I refer to as the Bible for Bulloch County, it was published in 1985 near the time of her death. And it seems that they just took what she had and published it as is. So the last will and testament book, it just ended on page 100. So the rest of the book was never indexed, abstracted, or anything like that.
Oh, how interesting. That's a wonderful story about her. And I just think of the amazing work that people like her have done to get these books out there. Over 40 works. That's incredible. And I love using books like that. Someone who's gone in and done an inventory of the records, or read all the probate and given us a nice abstract. Those are just such a great way to get started anytime you're working in a new county and looking at your family. So I really appreciate all the people that have done that. So how interesting though that her last book just kind of leaves off in the middle. Hopefully there's a introduction at the beginning or a preface that explains.
Unfortunately, it does not. That was something that a lot of the works are just trying to figure things out as you
Mm.
go. We just reprinted the book last year and we're only able to add a few pages. Some of the abbreviations we did have listed in the new copy.
So what year does it go through?
It starts at 1795, which actually predates Bulloch County, and goes until about 1855.
Nice. So maybe my John Royson is in that book.
I have checked. Unfortunately, he is not.
Shoot. I was hoping you were going to do a big reveal and say, I found him. No.
Well, he is not in that book, but I feel that there is another place that he could possibly be listed.
ooh.
Well, you have my permission to call me and tell me if you found him.
I certainly will.
Anytime, day or night. That would be so fun to find out what happens to this guy. He ends up there. I think it's 1815. He has the land grant, and then he disappears. So, oh my. Well, that's so fun to learn about. Alvaretta Keenan Register. I love her name too. That's an awesome name.
Yes, she is one of those that she was known by her name, and even though she divorced early on, she kept her married name and her maiden name.
Hmm.
And I use her family tree, her books as examples in my classes. I take care of her grave as well. She's kind of a kindred spirit for me.
Oh, that's so neat. Well, I am so glad that you pointed her out, and I'm completely going to go check out her works and see what I can learn from her.
What a great idea. Well, let's talk more about Bulloch County records. It seems like a lot of them have been digitized, according to the Family Search Wiki. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, most of the books were microfilmed in the late 1950s, about 1958, I believe. However, none of the loose records were microfilmed, and most have never been digitized. We're not quite sure if it was just a policy at the time that they did not include these. There was an index, a large book in the courthouse at the time that just recorded names and what box or folder the loose records were in. And I have gone back and compared the copies on Family Search with the book that is in the courthouse today and found that they are very different. An updated version was probably done in the 70s or 80s, and they have almost twice as many names listed and additions and corrections. So if you're only looking at the Family Search Wiki and their copy, you're not getting all of the records. You're not seeing all the names that are mentioned, and you still have to go to the courthouse to see those originals.
Wow, that's really helpful to kind of imagine what's online versus what's in the courthouse. So it's really helpful to imagine like all these loose records and just different things that you wouldn't see in the books. And I have some experience with that, looking at some collections where there are the loose records scanned and comparing that with what's in like the probate book. And there's just so much more if you can get like the probate packet with all the loose papers. It's amazing how many more people are mentioned and just so much more data.
I have solved so many mysteries in finding the original records, the loose ones. They have 161 boxes of records there that are available.
Wow.
So I digitize anytime I'm looking, and I keep those digital folders available at the library, but I can only do so much. So that's another one that I'm hoping Family Search can help come and help us with.
Yeah, totally. It's amazing how much they can go and do with their microfilming. And I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but my husband's aunt has been in Tennessee at one of the courthouses there, just working on digitization projects for Family Search. So it's really cool that people are volunteering to do that.
It's amazing what they can do.
Well, I just have a quick question for you. When you were talking about, the difference between what's available on site and what Family Search has scanned and has digitized, how would somebody go about finding out if there's a lot more? I mean, you're obviously a wonderful resource, but would you recommend that you just call the county courthouse? Do you call the county historian? I mean, how would you find out more about what is available at the courthouse besides just going there in person?
I have found that many probate courts, the clerks themselves have compiled lists of what they have there to help the new clerks coming in so that there's a easy accessible list to show what they have. A lot of the clerks in the surrounding counties will tell you to call me for what they have. It's really a hit or a miss, to be honest. Some courthouses do a wonderful job of knowing what they have, and then sometimes they just say, "There's the door," and go look for yourself. I try to make a guide for myself every courthouse I visit, and I take photographs so that I can blow them up later to see the titles on all the books. And I make sure to make a quick list anytime I visit, and then I go back to type those up and have like a locality resource for each courthouse.
Oh, that's wonderful advice. Well, what are some of the record collections that maybe have been missed or overlooked? And we've talked a little bit about probate and court, but are there some other types?
Yes, I found this out just a couple years ago that there was another former genealogist who did research about 100 years ago, honestly. Most of her notes are from the 1920s and 30s. But at that time, she frequented courthouses so much they would let her take the books home with her to do research. And when she passed away, most of those books were still at her house and they were not returned. And another researcher found them in an estate sale decades later. He actually had to purchase some of the Superior Court minutes in order to simply return them to the courthouse.
Oh my goodness, that's a good story.
And I have found researchers over the years who had copies of her notes where she referenced a book, but she did not put the source where they came from. And through tracking her notes down, I have found that several of the books have been rebound, and what they used to be called are not what they're called today. So that's another thing that you really need to pay attention for. Books that are over 200 years old may have been rebound and have a new title on them.
This just really speaks to doing such good research on the locality and the place that you are trying to discover some new materials, because you just got to dig deep. And when you were talking about contacting, somebody at the courthouse, I thought you might have to make a lot of phone calls before you finally get to the person that actually knows something, because the first person you call may not be like you, but there's somebody like you, hopefully, in every area.
Yes, it's really a hit or a miss. Dr. Debbie Abbott, she actually recommended that if I am going to a new courthouse, even if I've called, take brownies or take cookies.
That's
So that
great.
is one advice I pass along.
So, are the records difficult to access in Bulloch County?
They are very easy to access, and the clerks are extremely friendly. If you are going to do research and you at least have an idea of what you're looking for, they can usually help you and direct you. There is a book that probably weighs over 50 pounds on a center table that is a general index book. And one of the former clerks went through and just recorded every name, every book that it is in, box, all kinds of information. And so that is going to be your best friend when you go there. One of the clerks, Michelle, she will also tell you if you don't know what you're looking for to please contact me and see if I can come help.
Oh.
They do have some books there that is the only copy. There are two books called Previously Unrecorded Marriages that cover over a 150-year period. And it has an index in the front, and then it is copies of the original marriage licenses, but they were never recorded in the books. So one of the judges there has been very gracious and allowed me to scan at least the index so that I have a copy of it and can look. But they have many books that the clerks put together there that are not available online or anywhere else.
Oh, wow. It really shows that there is so much more at the courthouse than there is online. And that's something that we always wonder every time we're researching in a new county. I wonder what they have at their courthouse. And that's so cool about the book that the clerks made with the index. So, in order to access that index book, is that something you have to go there, or could you reach out to the clerks? Or
The clerks can look through it if you ask them specifically. I have a digitized copy of the index as well that I can do lookups for. They do not like people to take books home anymore, but
I wonder why.
exactly. But they do let me bring my book scanner in, and some things that they know would take a little bit more time, they've allowed me to bring to the library, which is just 2 blocks away, to scan here in one day and then take them back.
Special privileges for you.
Yes.
You are highly trusted.
They know where I'm at, and they one time the clerk was pulling a book off a shelf for someone and the binding fell off, and she said if I had been there she knew I would cry.
Oh.
So those are my babies, and I take care of them just as well as they do.
I'm sure everyone there is so grateful for you. Well, let's do a word from our sponsor, findagrave.com. Find a Grave is the ultimate online destination to discover burial information and cemetery details for family, friends, and famous people. Finding the graves of your ancestors has never been easier. You can create virtual memorials, add photos of headstones, and honor your loved ones with virtual flowers. Find a Grave's user-friendly search features allow you to explore by name, location, cemetery, date, and more. Their dedicated community of members continually adds new information, so it's worth searching again if you haven't found what you were looking for. Want to be part of the Find a Grave community? Download the free app, visit your local cemetery, and contribute missing grave information. It's a rewarding way to spend time outdoors while helping others find the burial locations of their loved ones. So, Lillian, my next question, what about these books and records? Are they clearly labeled? If you pull one off the shelf, will you know what's inside of them?
For the most part, all of them do have labels that at least indicate the type of records that are inside and the dates for those. Some books I have realized that had new bindings. They used to be just last will and testaments, like numbered 1 through 10. But today, the bindings are labeled 1A through, I think, 20A. And they actually include the annual returns in that same numbering system. So that can be a little bit confusing if you think you're looking at last will and testaments and then you see annual returns. So always look at the inside cover of each of these books as well. One big discovery that I made recently was in their minute books. The first one actually starts and says it is volume 10. The second one is volume 4A. And then all of the books after that do not even have a volume number, they're only by years. And this book 4A has more last will and testaments listed in it, fully documented, than any other minute book I have seen. And it is the only minute book that does not have an index.
Oh my goodness, isn't it so frustrating when you pull out a book like that without an index? Ah, well, it just really speaks to the fact that you've got to not let the cover keep you from looking inside and looking through it and trying to discover what is there. You know,
Exactly.
you just have to remember that these books were kept by clerks, and some clerks were better at being more logical, I guess, in how they recorded things. And sometimes maybe they ran out of a certain type of book and used another book to record it. Do you think?
Yes, I have seen some evidence of that where one book filled up faster, and they do have a notation in the book to go to this other book to look for more records. But if you don't happen to look through that page, you're not going to know that it kind of started in another book. So I jump around and look through different books quite frequently there.
So interesting to think about how these are organized and what you might find. It's like a treasure hunt. It really is.
Yes, this is so enlightening because we're learning all sorts of different tips for searching and just how to get to that reasonably exhaustive search by really being treasure hunters, like you said.
Yes. One thing I might mention, speaking of the clerks, during the Civil War, when Sherman's army was coming through, we have found a letter stating that the clerk, David Beasley, knew that Sherman's army was coming, and to avoid the records being destroyed, he took them and buried them out in his yard. Not at his house, but just in the yard. And that actually saved all of the records, or nearly all of the records.
Well, that's
Oh,
wonderful. And
love that
he
story.
remembered to dig them up too. So that's good.
Yes. I have actually found little bits of dirt between some pages before too. So,
Oh my gosh. Well, we've already learned so many great tips. What additional advice would you give someone planning to do research in a courthouse?
always have a research question in mind when you're going to a courthouse. I can't tell you the number of times people just go to see what's there. You really need to have an idea of what you're looking for. Find out what records and collections are available. I usually always go to the Family Search Wiki first to see what's available and then print out that list and take it to the courthouse to compare them, see if something else might be in the repository. Do call and find out what you can and cannot take inside of a courthouse. Some are much more restrictive than others. When you're comparing those lists, if there is something that you found on Ancestry or Family Search, print it out and take it to see if it compares and is the exact same record at the courthouse. I have found many instances where the book the clerk wrote was, single copy, but they had the original that had the signatures of the testator and things like that. And of course, if you find what you're looking for, I recommend photographing it and make sure you cite the source. I use Cam Scanner personally, and I can create folders, I can make citations. It helps straighten out the images even if they're of an odd size. That is my best friend at a courthouse to cite and record all of my sources.
So is Cam Scanner a smartphone app?
It is. It is an app and also a website. It's available for iPhone and Android. And years ago, I had just been to a courthouse, and the next day, I actually dropped my phone in a puddle and thought that I had lost everything.
Oh no.
I logged into the website, and because I had used it with Wi Fi open, it backed everything up to the cloud, and I had all of the images and the citations of my records.
Hurrah.
Yes. There is a free version and then a paid version for more storage, but it is amazing.
Wow, I'm looking at their website now, and it's really cool that they also have the OCR.
Yes, they do. And they will also straighten images, which is really neat in the books that the pages are kind of folded. And it will turn images into Word documents. And then for original images that might be in cursive, you can save them as PDFs or JPEGs.
Wonderful. What a great tip. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Yes, thank you. I've had a couple different apps for scanners. They all are different, but this sounds like a really good one. So I have a quick question about your citations. How detailed do you get on your citations when you are going through a book? Do you just do it really, really good the first time, or do you go back and edit it at all?
Um, Usually if I'm finding things from one particular book, I'll start a new folder and make sure to cite that book, and then the notes on the consecutive pages, I'll just list the page number and who is in the record that I'm documenting. If it is a mix of, several types of records jumping from different books, I'll do a full citation in the notes each time.
And I'm sure you've learned by experience that if you don't do that, you never remember where you got that copy.
Correct. Yes. And I love that the notes will also pull up on the website so you can see them there, and then I can copy them in to my, if I'm writing an article or proof argument or something, I can just copy them, and it's that easy.
Wow, you have a really great system. We've learned a lot from you. So neat.
It probably helps I'm a touch OCD, so I label things like crazy.
That is why you're so good at what you do and why everyone there loves you.
Thank you.
I think we all have to have a bit of OCD in us to do genealogy research.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It certainly helps.
Well, before we close, is there anything else you would like to tell us about? This has just been so fun to talk to someone in the know. Have loved this conversation.
People are welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions. I have a Facebook group for our library that I try to post all kinds of free webinars and events, and you can send questions. Even if it is a different courthouse in Georgia, I try to travel all different parts and get experience at different courthouses. So sometimes, if you know someone else who's been there, they can help you and give you a guide. So definitely reach out to local genealogy societies if you've never been to an area. Find out who might be able to give you a quick crash course of that courthouse.
That is such good advice. Well, Lillian, it has just been a pleasure to have you on the podcast and to learn more about your work. And thank you for all that you do. From those of us with people in Bulloch County and are hoping that you'll still find the magic there, to all those who just are listening and now have a better idea of what is in a courthouse. So our show notes will have some information, some contact information for you and your library, so anyone can go to those and find out more about Lillian. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you again in person at a conference someday.
Thank you. I look forward to it as well.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye. Thank you for listening. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your research. If you want to learn more, purchase our books Research Like a Pro and Research Like a Pro with DNA on Amazon.com and other booksellers. You can also register for our online courses or study groups of the same names. Learn more at familylocket.com/services. To share your progress and ask questions, join our private Facebook group by sending us your book receipt or joining our courses. To get updates in your email inbox each Monday, subscribe to our newsletter at familylocket.com/newsletter. Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. We read each review and are so thankful for them. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro.